Welcome to Secrets in the Shadows. I'm Charlotte, and today we delve into a story that is both harrowing and inspiring, the abduction and miraculous survival of Abigail Abby Hernandez. Viewer discretion is advised, as this narrative contains descriptions of abduction, captivity, and abuse. North Conway, New Hampshire, was a peaceful town. It was a small, quiet place where families felt safe. But on October 9th, 2013, something terrible happened that shook the entire community. Abby Hernandez was 14 years old. She was a freshman in high school, full of dreams and life. That day, she left school like she always did. At 2:53 p.m., she sent a text to a friend. Then, she vanished. Days passed, and her family and friends grew desperate. Search teams looked everywhere, but there was no sign of Abby. How could she just disappear? What happened to her? While the world searched for her, Abby was trapped in a nightmare. She had been kidnapped by Nathaniel Kibby, a 34-year-old man from Gorham, New Hampshire. But who was he and how did he do it? It was a cool autumn afternoon when Abby began her usual walk home from school. The streets were quiet, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. As she walked along the road, a car slowed down beside her. The driver, Nathaniel Kibby, leaned out the window and called out to her. He looked like a normal guy, no signs of danger. He offered her a ride, saying he could get her home faster. Abby hesitated, but being young and trusting, eventually got into the car. That decision changed everything. As soon as she was inside, Kibby locked the doors and pulled out a gun. He told Abby to be quiet, warning her that if she screamed or tried to escape, he would hurt her. She froze in fear, unable to process what was happening. He then forced her to put a shirt over her head so she couldn't see where they were going. The fear was overwhelming. She had no idea what was coming next. As Kibby drove, he grabbed Abby's phone and quickly removed the battery, making sure no one could track her. He kept driving for miles, moving deeper into a remote area. Every bump in the road, every turn, only added to Abby's fear. The reality of the situation set in. She was being kidnapped. Eventually, the car stopped. Abby, still blindfolded, was pulled out and forced into a trailer in Gorham, deep in the woods. She tried to resist, but Kibby was stronger. He pushed her inside and locked the door behind them. The air was stale, and the walls were soundproof. No one could hear her cry for help. She was completely trapped. He took her to his trailer in Gorham, deep in the woods. No one could hear her scream. Inside, he locked her in a small, soundproof storage container. She was trapped. Over the next 9 months, he controlled everything she did. He hurt her, threatened her, and made her feel completely alone. He even put a shock collar around her neck to scare her into obeying him. Abby was forced to wear a shock collar and call Kibby master. He monitored her with security cameras to make sure she wouldn't try to escape. She lived in fear every day, knowing that any mistake could lead to more pain. She was kept in isolation with no way to reach her loved ones. She was often hungry, cold, and terrified, forced to obey Kibby's strict rules to avoid punishment. Kibby manipulated Abby into believing there was no escape. He told her that no one was looking for her, that she was forgotten. He controlled every aspect of her life, making her feel powerless. Despite this, Abby found ways to hold on to hope. She reminded herself of the people who loved her and held on to the dream of freedom. 2 weeks into her captivity, Kibby allowed Abby to write a letter to her mother. The letter, postmarked October 13th, 2013, arrived at her home weeks later. In it, Abby wrote that she was alive, but could not say where she was. Her mother immediately recognized Abby's handwriting. giving her a small hope that her daughter was still alive. Kibby had a history of run-ins with the law. Before kidnapping Abby, he had been involved in criminal activities, including counterfeiting and possession of illegal weapons. His past behavior showed a pattern of control and violence, making him a dangerous individual long before he took Abby. But Abby did not give up. She stayed strong. She knew she had to survive. She decided to act like she was following his rules, hoping to gain his trust. She talked to him, listened to him, and waited for the right moment. She knew if she fought back, he could hurt her worse. So she played along, using patience and intelligence. She focused on small goals, staying alive, staying calm, and looking for a way out. Over time, Kibby started to believe Abby wouldn't leave him. He became less strict. This was his biggest mistake. By 2014, after nearly 9 months of captivity, something changed. Kibby became increasingly paranoid that law enforcement was closing in on him. He had a history of criminal activity and feared being caught for unrelated offenses. His anxiety grew as he realized that keeping Abby any longer could put him at greater risk. During this time, Abby had worked to gain Kibby's trust. She had learned his routines, adapted to his demands, and carefully positioned herself as someone he could let go without fearing immediate repercussions. Eventually, her strategy worked. One day, without warning, Kibby told Abby that he was going to release her. She could hardly believe it. After months of being told she would never go home, the moment she had been waiting for was finally happening. Kibby put Abby into his car and drove her back toward North Conway. He instructed her not to talk about what had happened, making her promise that she would not report him to the police. Fearing for her safety, even in that moment, Abby agreed. Instead of taking her directly home, Kibby dropped Abby off near her house. She walked the rest of the way, her heart pounding with every step. When she finally reached her front door and knocked, her mother opened it and immediately collapsed in tears. Abby was finally home. After Abby's return, she was reluctant to discuss her captivity in detail. This hesitation led to speculation and even disbelief among some people in the community. Some questioned how she had survived and why she hadn't tried to escape sooner. However, law enforcement took her case seriously and continued their investigation, ultimately leading to the arrest of Nathaniel Kibby. The evidence collected from his property confirmed Abby's harrowing story. On July 28, 2014, just days after Abby's return, police arrested Nathaniel Kibby at his home in Gorham, New Hampshire. Investigators found evidence that linked him to the crime, including materials used to restrain Abby and a soundproof container where she had been kept. He was charged with multiple counts, including kidnapping, sexual assault, and criminal threatening. During the trial, prosecutors presented overwhelming evidence of the abuse Abby had suffered. The courtroom was silent as details of her captivity were shared. Initially, Kibby pleaded not guilty, but as the evidence against him grew, he accepted a plea deal. In 2016, he was sentenced to 45 to 90 years in prison. He showed little remorse during sentencing, while Abby's family expressed their relief that he would never be able to hurt anyone again. Abby's mother, Xenia Hernandez, spoke about the pain of losing her daughter for 9 months and the overwhelming relief of having her back. She thanked law enforcement for their persistence and the community for their support. Abby herself chose to remain out of the public eye for a while, focusing on healing and rebuilding her life. In 2022, she served as an executive producer for the Lifetime movie Girl in the Shed, The Kidnapping of Abby Hernandez, which portrays her harrowing experience and survival. She has since maintained a low public profile, concentrating on her well-being and family. Thank you for watching. If you found this story powerful, please like, share, and subscribe to Secrets in the Shadows. We uncover the truth behind the world's most chilling stories. Stay safe, stay aware, and remember, light can always shine through the darkest shadows.